Before you close out this video and start working on your game plan, make sure to watch this video all the way through because you might be able to save some money for your future visits to Japan. As you may already know, Japan has undergone some major changes since the country recently reopened. And with a lot of big updates, there comes a lot of big risks to your trip being ruined. From the Suica and Pasmo crisis to hotel shortages, there are a lot of things you need to know in order to properly prepare for your next trip to Japan. So in this video, I'll walk you through a few major changes in Japan that you need to know and some tips on what to do and what not to do in Japan. In the end, I'll share why buying a house in Japan may save you money in the future. If you're new here, my name is Shu. In this channel, I talk about real estate investing, financial freedom, and Japan. If you enjoy the content of my channel, do me a favor and subscribe to this channel. It really helps the channel grow and I'd really appreciate it. Okay, so let's talk about money. There hasn't been a better time to visit Japan in terms of the discount you get with the money. According to Nikkei Asia, yen's buying power has sunk to a 53-year low after decades of stagnation. This is not good news for people who are earning most or all of their income in yen. But if you're earning in other strong currencies such as USD and Euro, things will feel much cheaper in Japan than where you are now. I remember when I moved to Hong Kong in 2012, 1 USD was 78 yen. I was so happy to be earning in Japanese yen up to that point. As I record this today, 1 USD is 146 yen. So compared to 11 years ago, the same dollar could get you 87% more yen today. Yeah, 11 years is a long time, but how about 18 months? In March 2022, 1 USD was 114 yen, and it had been like that for the majority of the last decade. That's a whopping 28% difference. So it feels like you're getting a 25 to 30% discount on everything in Japan right now. It's like the whole country of Japan is an outlet mall. This might continue for a while, or it may change in the near future. Tips on getting your money. You will probably get the best exchange rate at the bank in your home country, so be sure to get Japanese yen before visiting Japan. You can obviously do this at the airport and ATMs in Japan, but again, you probably won't get as good of an exchange rate as you do at a bank in your home country. Cashless payments are getting more common in Japan. Cashless payment options like PayPay, LINE Pay, and RPay are becoming increasingly popular, and many shops have started to accept these payment options. But compared to other technologically advanced countries, Japan still relies on cash very heavily. Especially if you travel outside of major cities, you may not have a lot of payment options other than cash. So be sure to have plenty of cash on hand, especially when the exchange rate is in your favor. A quick money tip to remember about Japan is that there is no tipping in Japan. I've lived in the US for many years and I visit the US often, so I'm pretty familiar with the tipping custom. Do you want to know my opinion? I'm very much against it. I'm probably going to upset a lot of American viewers, but to me, it's weird, especially when it's expected. For example, I went to a concert in the US recently and I was asked to tip by the kiosk screen, even though there was no service involved other than the cashier filling a cup with machine-made lemonade. And it starts with a 15% tip, which indicates that if you tip below that amount, you're cheap and awful. Look, I would be happy to pay for great service, but that should be included in the price. The employer should be responsible for paying the employees, not the customers. Anyway, do not tip anyone in Japan, even though you've had the most amazing food and service and you're wanting to give extra. In Japan, excellent customer service is kind of a given, and workers don't do it for the tip, but for their commitment to the work they do. Speaking of cashless payment options, Japan has amazing prepaid smart cards that allow you to use most transportation in Japan. On top of that, you can use these cards to shop at konbini or convenience stores as well. The two most popular prepaid smart cards are called Suica and Pasmo. But the bad news is Japan Rail East recently announced that the company suspended the sales of unnamed Suica and Pasmo cards due to a worldwide chip shortage. Because of this unfortunate update, you won't be able to get a blank Suica or Pasmo card at any of the ticketing machines for the foreseeable future. But don't worry, there are plenty of other options to combat this. One of the best options is to get an electronic Suica or Pasmo, which can be added to your Apple Wallet. You can top up the card by using a credit card and scan it as you pay. Mobile versions of Suica and Pasmo remain available, but if you have a non-Japanese smartphone, payment options may be limited. Also, the tourist-oriented alternatives Welcome Suica and Pasmo Passport will remain available with some new changes in effect. Functionally, these variants are largely the same as their local counterparts, but sales points are more limited. The good news is that the welcome Suica does not require the 500 yen activation fee that regular Suica does, but as a downside, it's only valid for 28 days and the remaining balance is non-refundable. Public transportation is a vital part of visiting and living in Japan, so it's important to have your own prepaid smart card. So be sure to get yourself the best version of smart card to make your stay in Japan as pleasant as it can be. Another change in Japan you need to know is that tourism is back. Over the past several months, tourism jumped up to almost 80% of the pre-pandemic levels, with July seeing its number to 2.3 million monthly visitors. This is a big deal, especially considering the number was close to a zero at this time 1 year ago. And the number of monthly visitors will probably jump up even more now that Chinese tourists are back in Japan as of late August. That's when you know Japan is about to get very crowded. Because of this, tourist attractions all over Japan will be packed with people, and you better believe it's going to get more difficult to book your hotels in Japan. Speaking of hotels, Japan is experiencing a labor shortage crisis, especially in the hotel industry. In a recent survey, about 76% of hotels said that they don't have enough full-time employees, and 78% said that they don't have enough part-time staff to cover the needs of the business. As you could guess, this is because many hotels were forced to reduce their staffing during the pandemic, but they haven't been able to keep up their hiring efforts with the demand now that tourism has bounced back to almost pre-pandemic levels. But if you take Japan's aging and shrinking population problem and inability to provide better wages to new employees, it's very unlikely this hotel staffing shortage issue will improve anytime soon. So how does this affect you? Well, it's supply and demand, right? Severe staffing shortage means the hotels can provide fewer rooms and take fewer reservations. So they're forced to cut the supply. And what happens when there is so much demand and little supply? The prices will skyrocket. So my advice would be, don't wait to book a hotel room until the last minute. Book your trip well in advance. With that being said, I may actually have a better solution for some of you, especially if you love visiting Japan. Instead of dealing with the uncertainty of booking hotels every time you come visit, what if you got yourself a house on your own? It may not be in the heart of a city, but there are many cheap Japanese houses that are in good condition for sale for under $100,000 today. Sure, it's a big chunk of money, but if you think about all the money you might spend on hotels in the future, it might be worth it. Right now, the Japanese yen is very weak, so your money will go far, which means you have a good chance of getting a cheap house in Japan in cash, which will give you more negotiating power and likely a better deal on the purchase. As Japan's tourism continues to pick up and staffing shortages remain an issue, hotel prices will likely go up in the foreseeable future. On top of that, if you want an excuse to visit and stay longer in Japan in the future, you might want to consider this option to buy a house. And the last thing I want to mention is this. Blackstone, the largest commercial property owner in the US, is bullish on Japanese real estate.
So basically, we continue to see Japanese real estate market to be very attractive. We think if you look at the fundamental of Japanese economy, we're probably the last country to open its border after COVID. So recovery is really just happening.
Granted, they're leveraging a lot of debt to acquire commercial properties in Japan, but big players won't buy if they don't think it's a good time to buy. While no one knows what's going to happen in the future, all these factors may suggest that it may be a great time to buy a property in Japan to save yourself money in the long run. There you have it. Before we wrap up, I have an exciting announcement. Ever since I interviewed Colin from Kick Assets, I have drastically changed the way I view Japanese real estate. I used to be a skeptic, but now I'm an advocate after learning what he's done. So I decided to join forces with Colin to help foreigners purchase property in Japan. For the last few months, we've been working very hard and created the most comprehensive course I know about how to buy a property in Japan. It's packed with so much valuable information, and Colin will be the main teacher to share his knowledge with you. We will be sharing more about the launch of this course in the upcoming video, so be sure to subscribe to this channel and Colin at Kick Assets for more information. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to share this video with someone who might benefit from this. And if you want to learn how to buy a cheap house in Japan as a foreigner, I put together a free guide that will help you own your dream house or get started with real estate investing in Japan. Click the link below in the description and be sure to watch this video next for more. See you in the next one.